Welcome to the Collective Genius Podcast, the show for real estate investors who are looking to scale.
All right, welcome to the CG podcast, or better known as the Collective Genius Podcast. And I am honored to have another good friend. As you know, I'm calling these conversations with a genius, and today's genius is a good friend of mine, a fellow Midwesterner from St. Louis, my good friend, Mr. Sam Primm. Thanks for joining me, my friend.
I appreciate it. I'm excited. And you already got the dramatic pauses down, my man. You're already talking, knowing when to pause, put the right emphasis on the right syllable. So you're crushing this.
Appreciate that. This is, that usually at an event, I have a microphone in front of my face. I'm never shy, but it's the first time, doing this podcast as we launched it this new year. It's unique, I would much rather be doing a bunch of these than anything else at this phase, because as we were talking in pregame, it allows me to actually have some conversations with friends that I met through this community that I don't always get a bunch of time with. And there's 450 of you at this point. So conversations with a genius is my way of talking to my friends, I guess.
Every reason for it, whether it's selfish or not, is a good reason. So it's all good.
Yeah, awesome. Well, for those that don't know, the Collective Genius is our mastermind community for real estate investors that want to scale their business. This is for people that want to continue to go, whether you're doing consistently one deal a month, all the way up to people that are $10 million businesses and above. We've got 4 different levels for you. And Sam and his partner Lucas are in our premier level and our CEO levels. That's the type of business that they have in St. Louis, Missouri. And I have, I pause here because I feel like the proud dad, or uncle. Let's put it uncle.
Uncle's good.
I have seen you guys grow up from being a partner with another great member to making your own way beyond just real estate investing. You've become this social media star, and I want to talk all of it. But I want to start out with, tell me how you first heard about CG, and what were your thoughts? Let's start there.
Yeah, so I first heard about CG from our other partner, Brian, who you mentioned earlier. He was in it, and I remember going to my first meeting thinking what probably a lot of people think is, I'm out of my league here, right? All these people doing all these deals and, talking about all their successes. And I'm just trying to figure out which way is up when it comes to being an entrepreneur and a full-time business owner. So once I kind of got my feet under me, and once I kind of understood the flow and met a few people, our businesses absolutely exploded. So it went from like, oh my gosh, I am, the dumbest guy in the room, to I'm still the dumbest guy in the room, but it's not oh my gosh anymore. At least I know where to pull and prod and what to do to get the most out of this.
Yeah. Shout out to Brian Schroeder, man. When I think about the caliber of human being, not just investor that we look for, Brian's definitely on the top of that list. He's just a good human. And I remember him saying, I've got these 2 young guys. He said this to me. He'd call me every once in a while and say, hey, I've got these 2 young guys that are my partners on the flipping division. I was like, hold on, how many divisions do you have, Brian? Let's talk more about that. And he's like, I got these 2 young guys that are just crushing, and I just enjoy their company and enjoy mentoring them, but also see them as future, owners and members of CG. So it says a lot about you that there was something that he saw in you guys. Which let's go there. Let's go back to the start of this journey. What did you really want to be? Like, I'm asking all of our members this, and each answer has been a little bit different. But growing up in St. Louis, you had to be somebody didn't you want to be a Cardinal when you were a kid?
It's pretty boring, and I do say this on social media, but it's true. I didn't have big dreams or aspirations. I don't know if it was a level of stupidity, humility, whatever it was. I wanted to like be a dad, and my dad was an engineer. I wanted to go work for a company and be an employee until I was 6 years old and retire. And I didn't have all these big dreams and aspirations. I don't think I knew that they were out there. I don't think I thought it was possible. Just growing up in, engineer and part-time teacher as your parents, playing sports and not really thinking too much about the future. I was going to go off to college, have fun, try to stay out of jail. Did one of those things. But anyways, regardless of that, I was just going there to just I really just wanted to have a job. And then Lucas sent me Rich Dad, Poor Dad. We went to middle school, high school, and college together. I remember reading on my honeymoon, and I know it's cliche, but I just thought like, wow, there are other ways to go about this. And then we started investing in real estate on the side in 2014 and kind of have been stepping on the gas ever since then, sometimes good, sometimes bad. But I really didn't grow up want to be a football player or a baseball player. I just grew up wanting to provide for my family and be a good dad. And, I've been able to hopefully do that and more with kind of the cool things that I've been introduced through real estate.
Man, I love that answer. Like, what kid grows up thinking, I want to be a great dad? Your dad must have been a special one.
He was, every single sporting game, everything he was always at. He missed one game throughout my entire middle school, high school career. And he got cancer my senior year of high school, and he was, too sick to make it to the game. But that's the only game he missed. So football, basketball, baseball, growing up my entire life. So he was always there. And I remember, this is funny, Leon. I remember seeing, I think it was a Folgers commercial, and some dad got up and he made Folgers coffee, and he got a quick breakfast, and he kissed his wife and his kiddos while they were sleeping, and went off to work in I think it was like a gold Camry or something. I'm like, that's what I want. That's what I wanted out of life. And I, quickly obviously saw the potential of making more money and doing all those things, and that caught my attention. But that's really what I grew up wanting. And, the cool thing about it, if you do it the right way, you can be there even more and make more money if you figure out this crazy entrepreneurial real estate world that we live in.
Yeah, it's so funny. I remember that commercial. I'm old enough to remember when that jingle was something Folgers in your cup.
It was black and white TV back in your day, right?
Yes.
They had TVs though, right?
Yeah, we did have TV because, that's funny. That's funny. My grandparents too. Like, I remember my dad, I didn't have a dad growing up. My grandfather was like my father figure, and they lived just outside of Chicago, and we would go up there from Kansas City every summer, and Folgers was their drink, man. And I just remember those, as you said that, it just took me back to memory lane of going, I just want to be like my grandfather. He retired from the railroad. I want to be a good husband. I want to be a good father. And maybe that's just a Midwest thing, but I remember I had a lot of dreams of what I wanted to do, but not growing up with a dad, I know that was one of my, big, I have to be, if I'm ever going to be a parent, I have to be great. If I'm going to be, I got to be great at life, in business and other things, but a non-negotiable is I have to be a great husband, great dad.
Yep. 100%. That's the most important thing. It starts and ends there.
Yeah. And I think that most people, think that you can't have balance of family and business. When you're growing something, obviously the balance is going to be out of whack, but what I see over time is the person that starts at the elevate level and our select level and makes their way into the higher levels, you get more of that balance back, especially if you understand the power of hiring great people. So let's talk about, when did you know, like you guys, and it was you and Lucas starting, did you partner up with Brian for the fix and flip business? How did you meet Brian? How did that happen?
Yeah, we met Brian at a local meetup that he actually was running at the time. There was like probably 20 or 30 people, as most meetups start and then grow. And now we, get 250 to 300 every single month. But it was just 20, 30 of us in a room meeting. Luke and I were getting in the game. We didn't know anybody. And we, went to a few different meetups and met Brian at one of them, and then went to his and just got to know him a little bit through that, and had done some deals, was an active buyer with him. And Lucas and I at that point, 2017-ish timeframe, I think we rehabbed about 25 houses with full-time jobs. and we wholesaled like another, 15 or 20. So we did about 50 deals probably with full-time jobs. And
Also
Brian
working full time.
working full time, and luckily we didn't have our kiddos. We just had our kiddos, so a lot of that work was done before we had kiddos. But Brian was doing probably 100 deals, so he approached us about coming to work with them and partnering and trying to combine our forces and partner just on the flipping was the original plan. And that's what we did. We kept our rentals separate and everything else separate, but partnered on that flipping side, and he was able to show us what it meant to build a culture, having hiring processes, having standards, and being able to attract high-level talent, which you alluded to is kind of the key to everything.
What do you think he saw in you? Because I think this is important for maybe those investors that aren't at that phase where, Brian was when he looked at you guys. But I think this is important. Like, what do you think that he saw in you guys that made him want to partner up with you guys? Because a lot of people think you got to do this on your own. Oh, I'm going to grind and do it on my own. What was it that attracted him to you guys and vice versa?
Well, what attracted us to him was just the fact that I think he owned like 150 single family rentals at the time. And that was our goal. And we were like, that seemed impossible. How does that even happen? I know the company had a great reputation in St. Louis. It had been around since 2002. So it had made it through the big, real estate recession and everything. So that kind of attracted us, just the fact that he was a big player in the market and was well known and well respected. And I think probably what attracted him to us was we were active. We went and figured it out. We bought a ton of deals from Faster House. We were, one of their best buyers as far as buying houses from the wholesale side of the company. And we were just super involved, and, we brought our families around, and I would think he thought we had our priorities right. I know he had tried to partner with a couple of people that didn't work out, but I think he knew we were willing to work hard, and he got a package deal, right? He got the analytical kind of operation mind with Lucas, and he got a little more of the obnoxious sales marketing mind with me, and thought that he could kind of help mold those into maybe one. Maybe he thought on their own they're not good enough, but if I get them together, then the half a brain each can make one full brain maybe. But we're super grateful for all the things he was able to give us. And at the same time, we both kind of talked and we're like, hey, we're ready to grow. You're ready to not. And it was a great little, buyout a few years ago now. And then everybody's happy.
So before I get to the buyout piece of it, you said something there and I don't want to gloss over. I have seen, people sometimes ask, hey, why do people leave the collective genius? And I think across the board that if I look back at my 6+ years in this role, 10+ years associated, but 6 years plus in this role, I've noticed that partner breakups are usually the number one reason. And that could be personal breakups as well, but usually it's a business breakup. When people start in this business, they typically have, two friends or two people that, wanted to do this and they teamed up. And a lot of times what you have are two visionaries at the top. But what you just said, can you speak to that a little bit more of how well the partnership works with you and Lucas? You try to make fun of yourself and there a little bit, but you are obviously half of the equation of why this works so well. Can you speak to that a little bit of why that partnership works so well with you and Lucas?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that go into it. I think initially, I said it earlier, we were friends in middle school. I have friends in high school, both play captain of the basketball team. You would have known it because we've never showed up to the CG thing because I would pull every muscle. I would pull every muscle in my body right away. I promise you that. And then we, went to college together, and we just experienced growing up and maturing in life together. And, we got into bar fights in college. We got into fights with each other physically, and we had a painting business in college, and, we tried to be bookies in college and collect bets. And we just had been through quite a bit in a relatively short period of time. When you're, 30 years old, 25 years old, and you've been friends with someone half your life, you kind of go through a lot together. So I think there's that like deep core foundation that I don't know that everybody has. But then I think we both have these big, strong goals, and neither of us are greedy. There were times where, Lucas's companies that he run, Faster House and our flipping company, have kind of carried the bacon on Lucas's and I's income. And then there's been times where they've been struggling, and the education company that I run have kind of carried the bacon. So I think we both have the bigger picture in mind. We both understand our strengths and weaknesses. And I think the beauty that we kind of really discovered was this divide and conquer. There are days where I don't see Lucas. I have a few meetings with him a week with our leadership team, but he runs the rental, management company's CEO of that and CEO of Faster House. And I'm CEO of our education business, Faster Freedom. And I kind of run our finance department, at least right above the CFO, and kind of help manage that types of things. So we divide and conquer is what I call it. We got to a point where we're both in the same meetings. You trust me, I trust you. We're wasting our time here. So again, I have probably 6 meetings a week. He probably has 10, and we have 2 together. So there are days where I don't even talk. So I think it's the mixture of just the deep-rooted friendship, the understanding of where we're going, and then neither of us getting greedy or petty, along with the dividing and conquering, because we both kind of have our own thing. We're together, we each own 50%, but he doesn't have any idea what Faster Freedom's doing, and I couldn't tell you one of the 260 or 70 houses we bought this year. I couldn't tell you one of the addresses. So I think there's that unique trust, maybe is the word behind it.
Yeah, and in partnerships, we all need our own things. I think there's a lot of gold in what you just said. You guys got to a point, obviously, this relationship that you guys have been building on. You're almost brothers based upon that description. It sounds like you're brothers. You guys are one of the rare. I told Brian this, and quite often I get a question of, "Hey, Leon, how many CG members have successfully sold their business?" Go, successfully? Yeah, that's the key word there. I can only think of a few, and one specifically as you guys, your example, where partners with a current member, specifically at the beginning was the fix and flip piece of it. But when I tell people the most successful I've ever seen anyone exit a business, specifically that arm of the business, was to sell to employees or partners. Obviously you got to a point where Brian was like, I want to do these other things. Did you see that coming?
Not really, no. I remember specifically we were having lunch with Brian, and this was probably end of 2020, and he just mentioned, at some point it's going to be you guys, and I'm going to sell my third of the company to you guys. And Lucas and I remember looking at him like, oh, I never really had thought that far ahead. And then that got us really excited. We love and respect Brian so much, but I think he knew, and everybody knew, that eventually we were going to take the whole thing over. So I remember just Lucas and I just texting and talking nonstop for the next couple of weeks and grabbing a quick meeting with Brian and say, hey, you mentioned that. Was that on your mind? Was that something you just flippantly said, or had you been thinking about that? And he said kind of a little combination of all three. So then pretty much from then on, we started talking about, our plans to grow and his plans to kind of, maybe take a little bit of step back, focused on the lending company. And we just got to a certain point where we're like, hey, let's figure this out. Let's hammer down a number that makes sense. And let's come to something that we're all happy with. We all can walk away friends with, and we can all be happier doing what we're doing and focusing on what we want to focus on.
That is the formula. Like I have expressed this to several members in the past that said, Leon, I'm at a point where I'd love to, I'm never going to retire, but I would like to, what's the best way if I wanted to go about selling my business? I was like, who on your team? And it's usually not a family member. It's who's on your team that you feel like you trust, that has been with you the longest, that would love to have a business continuation program, right? Because not every kid of an owner wants to take over that business. And I think that if you're in the shoes of somebody that is a high level business owner, and maybe you're entering that phase of your life where you want to move on, there's no better way than to hire great people that are entrepreneurial, that want opportunities to, not the person that's okay with being number two. Had this conversation with other members in the past. Not the person that's okay with being number two. The person that is maybe started out as a number two, but has aspirations of growth. It's a great way to keep great employees and have a business continuation program where it could be, depending upon the buyout, it could be this additional monies, retirement, annuity for people in the future. I don't think enough people think through that, especially at the higher levels, because they're thinking about, how do I sell this to somebody else? When you, more than likely, if you hire good people and you're done, at least from a day-to-day operational standpoint, they're right there in front of you if you hire the right people. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think it's, especially in like the flipping company sense, it's not one of those automated businesses or like SaaS products where you can just sell and get a crazy high multiple. And I think I talked to a few different people and they're like, yeah, flipping companies, basically what you make here is what you can sell it for. And obviously everybody has their different opinions there, but there's just so much that goes into buying, getting the funding, sales. There are just so many moving parts, and these aren't ginormous companies, that are just streamlined and ran to where, you could step away and everything would run smoothly for the most part. Now, everybody has their differing level of being involved, but in general, it's just grinding out every single month, even if you're profitable. So it's one of those things where it makes perfect sense to bring on somebody or elevate somebody to eventually take over. You're probably going to get the most money for it because that person's already in the business and understands it, as opposed to just going out to some, fund or private equity where they may not give you the multiplier that you want. So I think it makes perfect sense to do what Brian did. Obviously, smart fellow there, to just bring in people and then just, they know how to run it, they know how to operate it, and they'll probably give you more anyway for it.
Well, and the barrier of entry of this, like you said, it's not like a SaaS product that you can get a multiple off of because it's subscription-based or repeatable revenue, where if the owner leaves tomorrow, that business is not guaranteed to keep up that revenue. And so these businesses are harder to sell to the outside because it is a low barrier of entry. There's a lot of education that's available today that wasn't before. Guys like you that are social media stars that are actually giving tons of value to people. That wasn't the case, even just 10 years ago. That wasn't the case. When I started in this after leaving corporate America, I struggled to find books on real estate investing to help with my learning curve. I struggled to find podcasts back then. There were a few, but there wasn't what we have today, which is a perfect segue because you mentioned earlier your passions and the business splits. I don't have a lot of members that I can think of that have gotten to a point where the partners are pursuing their own individual passions. They're all real estate in the same bubble of real estate, but I don't think I've ever, maybe, this may be something I'm just not thinking of anybody right now, but you guys have done this at a super high level. Like, Sam, you have gone from Faster House to this, you knew that you were going to do well with social media. Like, you were the average Midwesterner that said, I can do this if I'm consistent, no different than flipping houses, and be really, really good at it. So where did that come from? Like, you went from just, I am a real estate investor to, I want to be someone, I have passion towards education. Where did that start?
Yeah, it was, interestingly enough, it started kind of funny. It started because I wanted to make a YouTube channel, and I was like, that's the digital rental property. If I make a YouTube video that makes, a few $100 a month, that's like buying a rental property. So I'm just going to get on YouTube, create content. We're doing a lot of really cool things. I remember posting on my personal Facebook a few times. Lucas did as well. And we just got blown up with friends from high school and college. Like, oh my gosh, you guys are doing all this cool stuff. Teach me how you're doing all these things. So I started a YouTube channel, and YouTube's pretty tough and I wasn't very good at it. So then I started posting on these, TikTok had just came out, and Facebook and Instagram, started posting on some of these short form platforms. And that's when I really got some traction. As you said, I'm just super consistent with it and authentic and real. I think I kind of got lucky because when I got on social media about 2020, everybody was a little sick of the bragging in front of a Ferrari, getting in the warehouse with it so you look like you buy a private jet, but you're not. And just that brag, right, that flex culture, which is still out there, but that had kind of run its course, and I can't and won't do that. So the fact that I was timed it to where just, I say I'm going to do this and I do it, and here's what I did, and here's where I screwed up, and here's how I did it. Just being me just tended to, maybe it would have worked a few years prior, but I think I timed that pretty fortunately, because we get 50 to 75 new students every single month. And a majority of them follow me on social media. A majority of them come organically. And I hear from the sales guys all the time, they were attracted to you, your authenticity, your realism, the fact that you actually do what you say and you're not super buttoned up. You're not a Filipino Ken doll like Ryan or anything like that. You're just a normal dude that just talks and gets excited and mumbles maybe and slurs a little bit. And, you're not a news anchor type style. So that just kind of all has snowballed into something that I didn't see. I mean, I got on social media, but I didn't see having, 3.2 million, 3.3 million followers and all the crazy stuff, because you're right. We're one of the bigger education real estate brands in the country as far as social media goes. So that just kind of happens slightly organically with some intentionality. And I'm what you call crazy, and I'm just going to do something until I get it right. If it takes me 5 times a day or 50 times a day, I'm just going to keep doing it until I get it right.
When you set out, you said that you just made some social media posts, but you had friends reach out and say, teach me what you're doing. Is that what directed this? Were you just going to do social media posts for the Faster House business? And then the people reaching out to you said, hey, I might have something here from an education space.
100%. I did not get on social media to build a brand to sell education products at all. That was not my initial goal. My initial goal was to get more brand awareness for Faster House, and then to create some YouTube videos that could create some revenue. Back in the day, thinking smaller, right? Just, hey, and if I can get 2 YouTube videos out a week or a month, 2 or 3 out a month, and they each make $200-$300, that's another 10 grand I can make this year, So just kind of thinking of it that way.
There are very few real estate investors, high-level real estate investors, that are also high-level coaches. There are only a few that I can think of within our community. What do you attribute to the success on both sides? Because generally we are talking people out of the distraction of teaching other people this, because it truly can be a distraction. I've seen it in this group where people have spent 7 figures on starting a coaching business and it failed. So what do you attribute that success for you guys being successful on both sides?
I think 2 things. I think the first thing is just that organic glow up, whatever you want to call it. It was just wild there for a while. I got in social media somewhat early. I mean, it would have been nice to get in a few years earlier, but I was gaining 20, 30,000 followers a month across the platforms. And I remember one month, March of 2022, we got 98 organic signups, meaning I got 98 signups for my mentorship. It was like 6,500 at the time, from social media posts, from not spending $1 in ads. So I think that was that just strong organic presence was really able to carry us. And we're seeing right now, we're not as good as paid ad as we think, just because organic carries the bacon so much. So we got to get better at the paid side. And then also that dividing and conquering. Again, I'm crazy. I spent 25, 30 hours a week on social media for 3 years straight, legitimately. No wet days off, no weeks off, nothing off, not Christmas off, not Thanksgiving off, making posts, getting content out, and studying and analyzing why that piece did better, while Lucas was running the flipping company and running that, and to a certain degree, Brian for part of that. So that allowing me the flexibility to be able to focus solely on growing a brand and then figuring out the best way to deliver that to a paid community, I think is the key to it. Because we made, I think up until November, our first year into November, we were like 15K in the black. I couldn't have lived on splitting 15,000 with Lucas. So having that time and that flexibility to kind of have something that wasn't making money for a long time was a huge part of it. And having that, simply put, having another stream of income allowed me to focus on this for a while.
Yeah. So I know the amount of energy, effort, consistency that you put into this, because I've been there since this journey has started. But I'm going to give you and your team credit here as well. I asked you a question knowing the answer, but you gave me on that side. But I just want to dive a little bit deeper in it. You guys have an amazing team. You have 2 executives running 2 successful businesses that are supported by an amazing team. Here is, I don't know if I've ever said this to you. I think I may have said this to Lucas, but, we have team calls within the Collective Genius that support the following positions: TC, lead managers, dispositions, acquisitions, and property managers. And all of our calls that we do in between meetings really came from suggestions by members. And the first one that we started almost 6 years ago, right at 6 years ago, was our COO call. Ren Bartlett came to me and said, hey, can we do a call in between for all the CEOs, especially those that don't get to come to the meetings, because we got all these great visionary ideas and then they come back and throw all of these at us. And we weren't there to see the presentation that they were able to see. So can we start this call? And that was the very first call that we did in between. But we would not have team calls where actual employees have their own Collective Genius community unless it was for your team. I think it was Sam and your lead manager or TC. I forget her name. And so forgive me, but
Lori. She's Lori Kell.
It was. And we wouldn't have those calls if it weren't for your team. So my point in saying that was not a plug for our calls. Shame.
Good one, though.
A little bit. Got it in there. But my point of saying that was, you guys, if you're going to make this jump to do multiple things, number one, make sure your foundation is set, right? Not only from an executive that is running day-to-day operations, overseeing things, but make sure your team is solid to allow you to go and do visionary things. This wasn't like you ran that day-to-day operations and then went off and did this. You had Lucas that stayed in the business with a great team and allow you to be the visionary for growing this other piece of the business. And that's what I was trying to get across, is that if you're going to be successful out at any of this, you've got to make sure that that's the difference, I think, between most entry-level investors and people that have been doing this for a long time is understanding the value of building great culture with great people.
Yeah, and I think getting the people, which is super cliche, but in the right seats. And we've seen that, as any small business has, where you're hopping off the CEO hat and you're jumping in the director of marketing here. You got to help with sales here. You got to help with operations. But the more consistently you can stay in your role, the better. We have COOs of each of our divisions, a construction company now that we started, property management company, flipping, and education. So we have very powerful COOs over each of those divisions, which recently we just kind of got all together, has allowed Lucas and I to be in that visionary seat of, well, let's tap into what we have. We have students that come in that pay us $10,000 to be part of our mentorship. We have a property management company that can manage their properties for them if they're in St. Louis. A lot of buy in St. Louis. We have a flipping company that can sell them the house, which happens. And then now we have this, rehab company, this construction company that can rehab their properties. So I don't think we would have got to that point where we can help people, but make 10 grand, selling them the mentorship community, make 20 grand, selling them a wholesale deal, make 5 to 10 grand rehabbing their property for them, and then make, 2-3 grand a year on them to manage one rental. So that's what we just kind of have been rolling out, but that's like 35 grand, average value per customer if we do it the right way and bring people in, because we have students in all 50 states, but we sell a ton to students that invest here in St. Louis. We've had 10 students move to St. Louis from across the country to be a part of everything we have rocking here. And we have a ton of students that invest remotely. So that whole story, just to say, the fact that I think we kind of got in the right seats and did a little bit what you talked about, allowed us to think of how we can tie it all together and really help more people, but make a lot more money as well.
It's a great business model because you're also helping people get to that financial freedom, right? Like they may be paying you for the mentorship, but ultimately, if you're selling them properties and they're flipping properties and holding rentals, you're helping them build wealth. And more than likely, they're earning back 100-fold of that money of the lifetime of their investing career. It's such a win-win, and why you guys have such success. Because again, if you don't have that team with the foundation on the other side, you can't monetize beyond just mentorship. you're helping people and showing them the way through the foundation of the other business, which is really, really cool because, again, it's a win-win across the board.
Mm-hmm. 100%.
All right, so we've talked about a lot of good here, and the often, especially in communities like ours, you will get people that will say all the great things. So I need some lessons here. Give me some challenges, and for both sides. What's the biggest lesson that you've learned from? Let's start with the investment business side first. Biggest lesson that you and Lucas have learned over the years.
I think one of the biggest things we've learned is we want to have this friendly culture. We hire our friends. A lot of people say, don't do that. We have 45-ish employees, team members, whatever you want to call them. And probably 15 of them we've been friends with since middle school, elementary school, high school, college, that whole bringing in that group. And while I love that we did that, because you can't really buy loyalty and you can teach skills kind of is our motto. I think we realized that you have to have a little bit more structure, and everybody was making a ton of money, from our sales guys to our marketing to everybody in the company was making a ton of money. And when the market contracted a little bit, as a lot of people know, in 2023, there was the same amount of transactions around the country as 1995 when Toy Story 1 came out. Yet there's 70 more million Americans. So there's about 4 million houses sold in 95, and then that was the lowest up until 2023, and 24 is going to be similar. So the market contracted, and we're a volume company. We just get a portion of what's out there. And Lucas and I had a pretty rough income-wise from our investing company, Faster House, in 2020 and 2023. So I think we realized that while we have all these friends, we have all these people who want to make good money, the company's got to eat first to survive for them to get jobs. So we kind of restructured a few different things. So that was a big one on that company side for us, for sure.
Yeah, that's a great lesson there for everybody to take heed of, is when we start this out, we may start with friends that we know or that we've worked with in the past. But, if you truly want to scale a business, those that got you here may not get you there. And this business can be very cyclical. I've had this conversation with other investors within the community. And, if you hold on long enough and you continue to be consistent and execute, you will continue to grow your business, but you have to adjust and adapt. You cannot stay just stagnant. And, that lesson you learned there, that's not something you automatically. Not many people that get into this profession came from an entrepreneurial background. They didn't own another company. Most started out with this after leaving a W-2. No different than you, no different than me. All right, let's talk about lesson learned from let's go social first, because I know you've had some celebrity types that have called you out, and let's give me the biggest lesson you've learned from the social media side.
Yeah, social media is an interesting thing. It's a beautiful, chaotic nightmare, all at the same time. Everybody just staring at their phones, doom scrolling, getting sucked into things, having fake gurus tell you this, having scammers tell you that, getting distracted from what you should be looking at and what should be in front of your face. So I'm a huge fan of social media, but I also understand the scary side of it. You kind of alluded to Dave Ramsey, which, respect the heck out of the brain, called me a liar on his show a couple years ago now, which was just a very random thing. He went on a 5-minute tangent about calling me a liar and all these weird anecdotes. But regardless of that, social media does have a dark side. I mean, I wouldn't say I get death threats, but I get death wishes. I mean, the last 2 Christmases, I've gotten different messages from different people saying they hope my family gets cancer for Christmas. And I've got, people from saying, I hope you die, I hope you burn, eat the rich, all of these things. And I think it just helped me discover that I don't necessarily think we're any more divided than we ever have been. I know people love that narrative. I just think everybody has a voice, and people get addicted to this virality, and what it takes to be viral sometimes is look at the news stations, nastiness and starting feuds and scaring people and fear mongering. And there's that side of it. And that's the unfortunate side of it. The fortunate side of it is we have 2,000 people now that have been in our community that own, they bought over 500 million in real estate, people quitting their jobs. And so you get both sides of it. I think social media has just kind of taught me that, there's there's a lot of people out there that are unhappy, and it's thickened my skin a little bit because it's hard to see and hear those comments, whether they're true or not. And obviously most of them aren't, but it just kind of thickens your skin up a little bit. But I've done my best to still be like, there's still a lot of good that comes out of this. And you know, just because one person's saying this doesn't mean that it's true.
It's like anything else, man. It's you harness the power of it. You know, social media, you have proven that social media is such a powerful medium. Without it, you know, we know you, right? We know you within the investment community, but you know, do you have an education business at the level that it is? Have you changed that many lives? You know, there's so much good that comes from it. And you're right, man. I can't imagine being a college athlete these days, or a professional athlete, especially with all the money and fantasy games and all of that type of stuff. Some of the direct messages and you know, it would be very hard for me to look at any of that stuff. And I'm sure you get some of that as well, but harness correctly, you are, you know, you are living proof that you can change lives with the different platforms in social media, man. I said it before, I'm super proud of what you've built there, because obviously you are helping people, you know, change lives and change generations. You know, real estate can really affect generational wealth, you know, for those that harness it at the right way. And you should be super proud of that. So outside of what you just mentioned of helping people, is there anything that stands out that over your career that you're most proud of in any of them? The education, the social, or the flipping business?
Yeah, I would say probably one thing that I kind of hang my hat on business wise is the rental portfolio that Luke's and I have been able to build. I mean, we legitimately own, you know, right at $50 million worth of real estate, pretty much using none of our own money. So that's something that I'm proud of. It's something we spent a lot of time, energy, and effort on. We got some stinkers in the mix talking about losses. We, you know, bought a couple apartment complexes a few years ago that we're still working on getting in the black, because we bought $15 million worth of real estate in like 12 months. So we're crazy and cool, and I'm glad to own a lot of it, but not everything penciled out as beautifully as we thought it was going to. So although it's, you know, has its ups and downs, I'm pretty proud of that, because that's something that if I stop buying real estate today, no more rentals, I've done the math, it's going to be worth $100 million in 15 years. And then another 50, you know, real estate, you get the double value effect every 15 years. And then you get the debt pay down side of it and all the other things that allows us to not pay taxes on the income that we make. So that rental portfolio and just the power of that with our balance sheet health, as well as tax health, as well as just future potential, is something that I know I'm going to look back and be like, that was for my personal, like, growth and net worth and family protection. There's no business that I can do that, at least yet for me, than, you know, what that can do.
You should be very proud of that, especially because that's what got the attention of Dave Ramsey and helped you go viral. So not only do you get the wealth building, but you got the attention as well. Win-win across the board.
Yep. Win-win. I love it. I'll take that any day. I wish you'd come back at me again. Bring it on.
So we are a culture. The Collective Genius is a culture of go-giving. And you alluded to this a little bit. I think your give that I'd love for you to elaborate on, there are a lot of investors that have been really, really good at their niche in real estate investing, whether that's wholesaling, hoteling, fix and flip, novations, land flippers. Seen a lot more of those over the last 3 years. But for whatever reason in this industry, I know we all want to continue to grow, especially the people that are in, you know, our community. They all want to scale and grow, not just from their business standpoint, but their own personal. Give me some feedback on, you mentioned the apartments, because that is the shiny object. Now, this has changed a little bit. 2022 changed this narrative. But everybody, I'm sick of single family. I've got to get into multifamily. Looking back at that, what would you have done different not to say that you'll take away those apartments, but what would you have potentially done different when you bought those apartments?
Yeah, things were just humming back then. The education brand was doing really well, becoming extremely profitable. The flipping company hadn't really faltered yet, so we had a few things rocking, and we wanted to scale and grow. We wanted to own $1 billion in real estate, and I think I still do, but I also question that as to when's enough, like how much you really want to grow. I always want to be growing and scaling, but that is something that I've been considering recently. But we're like, we got to get to $1 billion. We're not going to do with single family houses. We love them. We have a machine that buys 250 to 300 of them a year, so we can add rentals one off, but we need to go bigger if we want to get to that point and grow and scale more cash flow, more tax savings, all the things that come along with that. And I remember Lucas underwriting the deals, and he is just such a positive Paul, I guess. He underwrote those things that we're going to be at 95% occupancy like that. We're going to raise rent every single month or year like that. We're going to cut expenses because we're so amazing. We're going to take bet. Like, we were just this perfect pie in the sky scenario. And he says, Sam, go buy it at this number. And then I do my best to go buy it at that and negotiate it and get it a little bit less than that. And I think we would just been a little bit more realistic, because up until that point, the market hadn't really shrunk too much. Inflation hadn't really hit people's pockets as far as being able to rent and afford and buy things and buy courses and buy whatever. So we were just right kind of before a little bit of the decline happened, and we went all in. And I just think we would have been a little more conservative or a little more realistic with our numbers. For example, put it out there, one of our apartment complexes has averaged 89% occupancy for the past 2 years. Underwriting at 95 and maybe not getting the rent you want and getting, 6 points less on a 32 unit, 34 unit, that's going to hurt. And it has. Fortunately, we have other businesses and can fill the gaps and still get the tax write-offs and all and get debt pay down. But yeah, apartments are based on the income that they bring in, not on the market. So if you don't bring in income, they're not worth as much as you pay for them if you're assuming that amount of income. So I just think it's just being maybe a little more realistic and not looking at everything's going to work out perfectly, because it kind of had up until that point. And I don't know that would have changed it. I don't know anybody that does this. You probably don't either. There's downs, and, in order to scale and grow, you have to have challenges. There's no way around the challenges. And we just have gone through them and are going through them. And it's an attrition game. You keep standing and you're going to end up fine, but you just have to go through that. And it's a necessary evil, I think, of growing and scaling and being a better person, a business owner, is failures and screw ups and overspends. And we're doing it all.
Our goal, bringing like-minded individuals together, quite frankly, is to keep people from making major mistakes. But we also understand that mistakes are a part of this business. And sometimes you have to learn the hard way in order to never make that mistake again. Obviously, we try to ensure that through relationships, intentional connections with people that have gone down that road. I think that's the importance of community and being around high-level thinkers and those that have come before you. Especially, I know when between 19 and 20, the end of 21, really the first quarter of 22, every single one of those apartment complexes penciled because people ratcheted up numbers from occupancy, but also rents on a monthly basis, and the interest rates were so low. What they didn't take account for was they were just giving best case scenarios, and that balloon payment 3 to 5 years later, depending upon type of loan, what that interest would jump to, and how they would not be able to cash flow, and that preferred interest they were paying in any syndication was all of a sudden going to bite them in the rear end. That piece of it is conversations I know we had to help save people from making those mistakes. So that's a good one, man. I really appreciate you sharing that, because there's some shiny object syndrome that, I had people making millions going, I'm just bored with that. I'll be bored. I can continue to level up within my organization and keep that boring business rolling at a high level and still get level up people and level up myself at the same time. I'll stay boring, especially if I'm making millions on an annual basis. So that's a good segue to, before we get into some rapid fire questions here, what has this community meant to you and your business? Give me, being in a part of this group, what do you and Lucas get from the collective genius?
I mean, the collective genius has really been insanely paramount for every single business that we have. Just being around other people that are going through what you're going through, that are around the corner that you're getting ready to go around, and helping you said, kind of avoid cataclysmic mistakes, keeping you on the fairway and out of the ditches. I like to say, let's stub our toe here and not have a high ankle sprain. You know how much those hurt, right? So let's try to avoid the pain. So just having the connections that I've made throughout the time at Collective Genius and Lucas has made. And one of the beautiful things is now we have our sales manager going, we have our COO going, and Lucas goes into CEO group. So it kind of leaves me out a little bit, but that's all right. I'll wander back one of these times. But in general, just having the connections and just being around other people that are making the mistakes or having the wins that you're getting ready to have, either one, and helping you avoid the mistakes and double downs on the wins, and being able to have in-person meeting every quarter. But the thing you mentioned earlier, and I'm glad that we were somewhat a part of that, but those monthly calls that are Dismo and our TC and everybody can hop on, and we level up our entire team, not just level up the people at the top, because we leave a CG meeting and I have 15 ideas that I want to implement. I got to narrow it down to 3 or 4, and I realistically should be 1 or 2. But if I'm able to have my team see and feel all the things that we get through going in person or the virtual calls, I can implement 8 of the 15. And being able to implement 8 needle moving things every single quarter is worth millions if done properly. And you guys have done an incredible job having that in-person feel, bringing in the right people, but then allowing for that monthly cadence to where the entire organization is leveled up, not just the people at the top. Because if we level up and we don't bring anybody else with us, it doesn't do us a whole lot of good.
I have you and your team to thank for, the genesis of that first call. Members, are the lifeblood of the organization. And I think that we listen, I know that we listen at a high level to, if we can do it, we're going to try it. And we'll know quickly if it works or not. And if actual members are showing up or their team members showing up. So this is it's a community for members. And so those calls, again, maybe they eventually happen, but you guys help kickstart. So I appreciate that. One more follow-up on what CG has meant to Faster House. But I remember when you were starting your social media journey, I remember many meetings, you out in front with Kong and Ryan. Had you started, you had these people that had a bunch of followers. Had you started at that point, or were you just kind of hanging around them to get more information on how to grow?
Yeah, that's another good point. I think I started right about the same time as both of those guys did. And yeah, having just the connections of going out and seeing, the people with the camera crews following around, hanging out in the hallway, and just making connections and shooting content. I've shot a lot of quote unquote viral videos outside of CG meetings when I probably should have been inside taking notes, but we'll not worry about that right now. But outside in the hallways, shooting and creating content. So the connections that I've made, that I've, on a daily or weekly basis, texting a lot of the other big players in the space on the social media side, on the investing, education side, on the info space side has been huge. So yeah, you're right. Seeing me out in the hallway with those guys, and because it's tough on social media. Most people that are big on social media brought that over through being an actor, a musician, an athlete. Very few people start out with nobody knowing their name to growing somewhat of a prominence on social media. So it's a tough ball game out there. So again, it's a similar thing, just being around other people. It's not just for flippers. It's for people that want to grow a rental portfolio. It's for people that want to get all types of investing, but also the info space and social media space has been a huge, huge benefit.
Whatever it is that you want to grow and scale, there's a member in the group that does it. All right. So there are different superpowers within the group. What's yours?
I would say my biggest superpower, and trying to be somewhat unique because so many different people have so many superpowers in the group, would be, I think that I have a abundant competitive spirit, which I think is somewhat unique. A lot of people are competitive, everybody in there, right? And they want to and are okay with and willing to not necessarily step on other people's throat in the group, but step on other people's throats to get to where they want to go. That's how competitive you have to be a huge CEO of a company or somebody, one of the wealthier people there. They're stepping on people to get there.
Sure.
And then there's the other side of like the abundance of, hey, there's enough for everybody, kumbaya, let's all kind of figure this out together. I think it's a unique blend of, I want to win, but I really want to win with you. I really don't want to win in spite of you. I want to win with you. Whatever business, whatever thing we're talking about or collaborating with. CG has more of that than most, but that's not super common in my opinion. Having that blend of, let's win, let's go. It's okay. I don't have to maximize this deal. You can take this, or let's split it and do more deals together in the future, as well as being fiercely competitive and wanting to be the best at what you do.
I think that right there, if I had to bundle together, what investors in this group, these members of this community have as the keeper of the culture for the last 6+ years, and growing this organization, that's what I look for. You can be competitive, but understand that there are enough deals to go around for everyone. And there's going to be people that don't make it, that you'll take their market share, and you don't have to do this with stepping on people's throats. You can actually be abundant. And generally, the most abundant people grow beyond where they ever thought they would grow. And people say, what do you look for in a member? It's that right there. I can scale and be competitive. At the same time, I can do it with an abundance mindset. That's a good one. That's one that I think every member in our organization has. But I don't think anybody else would say that. We'll see.
Rare in the business world, not in the CG world, but in the business world, as far as I can tell, it's pretty rare, but not with the group that we have put together.
Agreed. It's one thing that's unique that no one knows about you.
I don't think very many people know this, and this goes into the book question sent me, but I am absolutely awkwardly and oddly obsessed with the musical Hamilton. I love it. Like, I know every single word to every single line. I understand all of the nuances, the foreshadowing, and that got me super, because I'm kind of a little bit of a history buff. I remember being obsessed with the ancient pyramids growing up, and then the story of the American Revolution and how Hamilton was so involved in that. And I remember watching the movie or the play, that's the movie on Disney, for the first time, not really knowing much about it. And it was an incredible opening song. They rapped the entire time. It rhymed, it made sense. And then they rap for 2.5 more freaking hours, and it makes sense the entire time. It's like the culmination of like Western creativity, in my opinion, being able to have it be that impactful, that talented. It's the most awarded musical ever, so it's not just me that thinks it. But anyways, I love me some Hamilton.
Wow, I did not know that about you. Did you ever get to see it in person?
Yes, I've flown and seen it in person in a few different cities, and every time in St. Louis we go and see it. So yeah, it's that travels around a little bit. Now, I have not seen it on Broadway.
No original cast then for you.
No original cast. So I mean, if I'm in New York and it's there, I'll go see it. But I've flown to Chicago and a few different places to see it, and then obviously the people that do it are incredible. But the original cast is pretty unique to be able to watch stuff on Disney.
I took my oldest son to go see it. My wife and I took him, and he absolutely enjoyed it. On road trips, when we're going back to Kansas from Florida, and we'll stop through Missouri. By the time we get to Missouri, we've got the whole soundtrack on. So we're right there with you. That's not only did I watch the Disney original cast and see it in person, the actual book in which Lin-Manuel Miranda wrote that play from, the book that he read, I've actually done it on Audible and had no clue. It was like 36, it was some ridiculous amount of hours.
Yeah.
And it's a thick book.
Yeah.
But I actually downloaded on Audible, and I started, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to take me forever to listen, because I've got a lot of different things I listen to, but I made it through that entire Audible book. And it's really fascinating, because the play does have a lot of it in there, but there's so many more things that are in the book. I hate to be that guy that says the book's better than the play, because it's not, but there's so many more details in the book.
Yeah. It just was cool to me that I didn't know that he was that integral in the American upbringing and the country and the revolution and after that. And it's just really cool. The whole story of the revolution is obviously very cool.
Yeah.
But just to see that inside of it and to see it from an angle that we didn't grow up hearing about was very fascinating to me. And I love that kind of stuff.
We would have heard more had he been a president. If he was the second president of the United States or the third, we would have learned more. And I am fascinated by learning more about those hidden treasures of people, of stories like that we don't hear more about. That's because you got your mainstream education that you get. That's the next question for you is your favorite business book that you would, recommend, and then personal. Like for me, those type of history biographies, that's what I love, and that give me kind of a break from business books because I it's hard for me to go business. I usually try to get in some biography or sports biography, something along those lines. Give me a couple books that you recommend, or Audible, what have you, however you consume them.
Yeah, I do a little bit of both. We usually read them on Audible as a leadership team, but then we buy the hard copies as well. And I was thinking about this, like, should I do more like in a holistic, like book that like everybody can read that no matter where they are in their business? But I mean, if you ask me my favorite business book, it's Good to Great by Jim Collins. I just love the way he writes and the detail and the actual data that he puts in behind his, research for the books, but then they extrapolate that and it's not just data. They talk about level 5 leaders and the hedgehog concept. So they take insane amount of information from really cool companies that people understand. They look at everything that they did. They interview everybody that was involved into it. And then they create like almost parables that are applicable to almost any business. So we read books every single quarter, at least as a leadership team, but Good to Great's one of my favorites. And it's probably the favorite if I had to pick one.
Love that. Personal? Any personal reads?
It's the Hamilton book. It was the Hamilton book. It's such a long book. It's not for everybody, but if you have any interest in history and you're interested in it, obviously listen to the play, watch the play, but that book's really cool.
Yeah. Like you, I'm big on history. So anything biography on Lincoln, Washington, any of the founding fathers, that stuff is so, so good. And I'm in phases. Like I want to learn more about American history and then go back to European history. But if I'm reading anything, usually in between any business books, and usually the fun stuff is what I'm listening to via Audible, right? Mm-hmm. The business books are the ones I actually got to get the hard copy and highlight it and those type of things. I ask these questions because a lot of times when we're sitting in the room, people are like, "What books are you reading right now?" And that's our community, right? People sharing, hey, this is a great book that you should read right now for that particular phase in which you're in. You have any podcasts like that you listen to that, from a business standpoint, really give you value?
Yeah, we listened to a few of them. You mentioned a little bit earlier, kind of your like escape is some of those books, and not plugged it, but my escape, the only kind of escape I get from work and family is the Colin Cowherd podcast. That's my sports update. So that's not business wise, but that's why I listen to it most days. It's just a quick 40-minute segment, listen to on 2 speed so I can get on the way home from work. But that is a huge one for me to listen to. But I don't do a ton of podcasts. It's more audible books that we're reading on a business side. So though my boy Colin is a fun listen for me that gets me out of the business and family mindset for about 20 minutes a day.
The same. Colin, I do a little bit of Dan Patrick, and these best ofs, the quick ones on 2, like you said. One other that you should look into is Southby's Sessions, long form interviews with sports and celebrities done by, oh goodness, I for whatever reason just forgot his name. Dan Le Batard.
Dan Le Batard, I was going to say, thinking Southby's.
Really, really, and it's just the interview long form stuff. And then one other business one that I'll suggest that I've said in our hot seat rooms many a times in the past, because it's more entertainment. Listening to people that grew businesses is How I Built This, with Guy Raz. That is fantastic. I've been listening to that one. I had a holistic doctor one time said, you would love this podcast because how much you love business. And I've been listening to that thing. I'm probably 5-6 years. Guys like Mark Cuban, the founder of Southwest Airlines, and just that visionary approach. It's a really, really good one.
Yep. No, I wrote that one down. I'll definitely check that one out.
And I pick and choose, like, all right, I'm really interested in learning more about that type of business. Some of these other businesses I don't care as much about, and they do it every week. Really good. And there's hundreds of them that you could go back and listen to. Not that, you have all that time with being a dad, couple different businesses. And I think that's a great way to end this is, everybody thinks that balance, is something that you get right out of the gates, and it takes time. I guess, how do you find balance with family time and business at this level of where you're at?
Yeah, I would say two quick things. One is the proper expectation. I think most people think work-life balance is a destination. It's a noun. It is an action. It's an adverb. It's something that you aspire to. I don't feel like you're ever perfectly balanced. But if you have the expectation that you're going to get a little wonky here, recognize it, and then go back the other way. And it's never a perfect balance, in my opinion, in my experience. You just have to be aware of what's slipping. If you're not as involved, you should be at home. Like, recognize that. Listen to your spouse. If your business needs you a little bit more, listen to your COO or your right-hand man or right-hand woman, and just be aware that it is something to strive for, and it's rarely achieved. I think you're not disappointed when it's not perfect all the time. And then the other thing for me personally is I get so much joy out of my business and growing it, and the challenges and the struggles and the wins and the losses. And I get so much joy out of my family and being a dad and a husband and all those fun, great struggles, nights getting up at 4 a.m. and all those things with the kiddos, that I don't need much else. And I know that's kind of boring, but my cup's filled up with those two things that I don't need to golf 3 times a week. I don't need to go on these vacations. The joy that somebody gets out of, I love golf too, but out of golfing or hanging out with the boys or doing those things, I get that from my businesses and from my family. So maybe I'll be a better business owner and a better delegator and family man in the future, where I can kind of carve out some time for a substantial hobby, but I haven't found it yet. And I'm not really looking because I'm happy enough with what I have. So I think the fact that I'm able to focus all of my effort on those two things, I can handle those two. I just bring in a third and maybe one would slip.
It's a common theme developing here, man, that more I talk to long form like this, members like yourself, the more I hear the word boring. I'm going to come up with a t-shirt that says boring equals rich. And I'm not talking just monetary. Like, it's just, if you look at most of the people that are happiest, that are doing the best, while still remaining happy, happiness is not, like you said, you don't just stay happy. You have to continue to work towards that. You have to calibrate everything, as you mentioned earlier, to continue to find balances that equal happiness. But I can tell you that the people that are doing the best with both business and balance usually have pretty boring business, boring balance. Mm-hmm. There's maybe a formula there that we need to come up with, and maybe we just did.
Expectations plus boring equals wealth. There you go.
Oh, there you go. All right, Albert Einstein, how do people get a hold of you, my friend?
Just any social media app. We talk a little bit about it. I'm on there, and I have a pretty unique blend that I have a decent following on pretty much anyone that you go on. Just make sure this one with the blue check mark. There's tens of thousands of fake accounts of me, and I get messages almost every week of somebody getting scammed out of crypto because some fake account that looks like me or used my content said it. So any social media app, the one that I am most active on the DMs is Instagram. So Sam, just look up Sam Primm or Sam Faster Freedom on Instagram, or any other platform you're on, and the one with the blue check mark, and just hit me up and love to have a conversation. I still answer my DMs. For a while I didn't, because I don't know if I thought I was too cool or too busy, but getting that like ground, to the ground level of interaction and answering questions and shooting quick voice note across, and spend, a handful of hours a week doing it. And I get so much out of it for content and impact that I'm in there. So if you DM my inbox on Instagram, you will be DMing me.
I can say this, that as a friend, but beyond being a friend, you are a great follow. You're all the things that you wanted to be, great father, great husband, great business owner. There's a theme that we have throughout these calls, but also in the Collective Genius this is the type of caliber of member that we're looking for, is a guy like you and Lucas and your team, my friend. I can't thank you enough for joining me today, and make sure that you give Sam a follow, especially if you're somebody that is aspiring to do what he did, which is go from a W-2 to a full-time real estate investor. And even if you're not, these guys are doing a ton of high-level stuff. If you're a CG Premier level member and up, they're a great follow as well. I think you have a lot of new friends here, Sam. He is genuine and as boring as he sounds. But man, what a great business that you built. Very proud of what you and Lucas have built, and continued success to you, my friend.
I appreciate it. Couldn't have done without you and your team. So appreciate you as well.
Thank you for saying that. And obviously, if you want to be in a room with guys like Sam and Lucas and others, and you want to learn more about the Collective Genius, you can do that at thecollectivegenius.com. The THE before collectivegenius.com. You'll learn about our different levels. We'd love to talk to you, apply, and we'll hopefully see you on a consult in the future. For now, that is the end of this, Sam. Thanks again for joining me. We will see you on the next episode.
Are you ready to scale your real estate business? Visit thecollectivegenius.com, where real estate investors come to scale. Subscribe to the Collective Genius podcast and hit the bell icon to be notified when our next episode releases. And thanks for listening.